Is he explaining the idea of L'chvoidi Barasa Vitzarti B'Aftisiv, the concept about Bri Yitzira Asiya, how that relates also to the world of Atzilus. We spoke about Bri Yitzira having to do with the level of Machshava, is Bri, and has to do with the Summers. There's a level of Yitzira, which has to do with the world of Malachim, that has to do with Dibur, and Asiya is obviously Maisa. We spoke about the Asiya Ruchnis, Asiya Gashmis, and now we were tracing our way back to the spirits of Atzilus, which is higher than Machshava Dibur Maisa, higher than the level of Bri Yitzira Asiya, and we started explaining the idea of Chachma and Moichin, that over there in the Chachma and the Moichin, we explained that the beginning of voice Hey, that's the part where, because of its bittel, it's over there is a keli for the Eir itself. And now we're going to start speaking about how between the level of Chachma and the level of Machshava Dibra Maisa, there has to be the idea of Midas. So it goes on, again, page 13, last paragraph on the page.
Excuse me, what is page 13? I have the Dvar Malchus today.
In the Dvar Malchus, it's the top of page Yudalad.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Kadesh and Mareishas Viris Reishis Achach, Reishis Chach, so that's from the beginning of the spheres, which is the beginning of Chach, which is the level of Chachmilah. Yuchali is Nimshach Seder Ishtalshas should be able to come down the chain order of descent of the Barasi Vitzart of Afasisiv, that we said that those are the worlds of Bri, Yitzira, and Asiya. Now we explained that those correspond to the idea showing Isa Machshava, Vaisa Dibur, Kayach, Canal, that the worlds of Bri, Yitzira, Asiya correspond to the language of thought and the language of speech and the power of action, like we said before. This comes about by first becoming enclosed in the level of the emotions. Like it is, for example, a person down to below Lahav, adults and kids. To separate separations to no end. In other words, we can't compare the way it's by the Abishter to way it's by a person down here. That the way that action comes about, that's through the passing through, it has to go through the Seder Ishtalshus. You can't just come into action. There has to be a progression. First of all, there's the desire, there's the will that's in the heart. From the desire and will comes down the letters of thought. That a person needs to think, how is he going to arrive to the matter that's wanted? And from the letters of thought comes down afterwards, and the letters of speech. Then, for example, the mitzvah is a law say that he commands someone else. He tells someone, as hadavar, it's the top of page 14, that he tells him to bring him what he wants. So from thought, it goes to speech. It goes being shalmaisa. And from the thought, it goes into the action. That through the action, he does particular activities to be able to reach and to acquire the thing that he desires, that his heart's feeling is for. Before Batanya, like it's explained also in Tanya, this whole development. Before it falls into the person's heart, that he should have a desire for a particular thing. First, he has to be aware of it. If he has no awareness of it, so then how can he have a desire for it? So that's the first step. Afterwards is awakened the drawing that his heart is drawn to that particular thing, to whatever he desires. And after he desires, so where does he go with that next? So now this desire has to return to the brain. Why does it have to return to the brain? To think about it and to figure it out. And then it acquires and has the language in his brain, the letters of thought, then the letters of speech. Like we said, he thinks about how to acquire it, then he speaks or tells someone to bring it to him, until it comes down in matters of actuality. Letters, so too, like I said before, to separate separations to no end, the way it is by a human being, the way it is by the Eibishter. But also so that it should be able to be all these three worlds, the world of thought and speech and action, the world of the Neshamas, the Malachim, and the Hazim. How could there be these three worlds? So say there is Talshus Best spheres Kufa. There first has to be a chain order of descent in the 10 spheres itself, prior to the world of Bri Yitzir Asiyah. From Hashem's Chachma has to come down with the Midas, just like by a person, from his awareness of something, he then has an attraction to it. And from the Midas, it comes down in the sphere of Malchus. So now the Rebbe is going to elaborate some more about this second paragraph in this page. The explanation of this matter is the letters of thought and speech do not come into being directly and because of the emotions of the heart. Even though we said that the emotions lead him to thought and lead him to think about it in his brain, and then that has letters of thought and letters of speech. But the actual emotion is not what creates and is responsible for letters. And the proof for this, that the emotions do not create letters or language. Even a small child is drawn to things with his emotions in his heart, and even more so. The way his emotions are drawn, the way they are drawn to a particular thing. When he wants something, he is very, very powerful. Like we see when a child wants something, there are no measures, there's no boundaries. He cries, screams, he demands, you can't calm him down. So you see that the emotions by a child is much more powerful even than emotions by an adult. So if letters and language were to come as a result of the emotions, so you would think that a child would have more letters and language. But it's not that way. The alpha became still in all the child cannot speak, since we see that he has powerful emotions. Still, no, he doesn't have the letters of speech. So we must say that the letters do not come into being from the emotions. Similarly, that the coming into being of the emotions is from the revealed intellect. All we've proven now is that there's no letters coming from emotions, because you see a child, he has powerful emotions and he still is unable to speak. What about intellect? He's most probably, his mind is not developed, but when his mind is developed, so then he has letters, he has language. So he says, no. We see even when a child has a small amount of intellectual understanding, still, no, he cannot speak with the letters of speech. From this, it's obvious. Also, his letters of thought is not the way it's supposed to be. So we see that even though he has understanding, there's no speech. And the fact that there's no speech developed, that means also the language, the way it's in thought that precedes the speech, is also not fully developed. Only when he matures It's added in something that's even higher than the emotions of the heart and even higher than revealed intellect. Only then is he able to speak, meaning that there is something that has to be higher than emotions, something higher than intellect, and only when that higher level comes to being is the person able to speak. The Forbes, as explained in this, the coming into being of letters is from the essence of the soul and from the level of intellect, not the way he's been using the term the whole time. He's been using the term over here, seichel hagoli, the revealed intellect. From the level of revealed intellect, that's not where the letters come from, because a person can have revealed intellect and still not have letters and language. But it's a level of intellect that's beyond revelation. So that is the source of the idea of intellect and the idea of understanding and comprehension. This level, that is the level of an intellect that's understood and comprehended and so on. That is the level with the and this in Seder Stalshlus, when one is say what the corresponding level is by the spheres above, the Dugmasai, in the Stalshlus spheres, the way it comes out of here, the example of something that's the source for the Chachma, not the revealed intellect. That is when Spheres HaChachma. Spheres HaChachma is the source of the letters. That is beyond revealed intellect. When it begins by a child, the revelation of this level, then when he finally taps into that deeper level, then he is mature, then he already begins the revelation of letters and language. Still and all of this was only to bring about that how letters are a result of his emotions and intellect. So first he wants to say where the actual letters were created from, but that's not all there is. Those letters that he thinks and he speaks about on such topics that he already is drawn to it with his heart's emotions, meaning the capability of speech that doesn't come from emotion, that doesn't come from the revealed intellect. But what am I going to speak about? What am I going to think about? That is only things that I'm attracted to already. I have some interest in. If I have no interest in it whatsoever, like what are the weather patterns in Africa, I'm not going to think about it, and I'm definitely not going to talk about it because there's no interest. I have nothing involved with that. Example for this understood that there's need for two matters. Behind what are the two matters? The creation of the letters and the passion that drives them to use these letters. There cannot be the coming into being of the letters only through the level of Chachma. This is what's brought on Kabbalah, that the father founded the daughter. Daughter is a level of Malchus. Malchus, as we know, is associated with letters and speech. Abba is the level of Chachma. So Chachma is responsible for the letters. And even more so, one has to go all the way to the level of the essence of the soul to be able to source and create the letters. That is all as their source. But that letters come out in the way of revelation. One needs to join the essence of the soul with the power of thought and the power of speech. This is continuing what we spoke about in the previous paragraph, how the emotions are necessary to carry it over. So the fact that I have a capability to speak, and the fact that I have a capability to think in language, it's not going to become actualized unless I have an emotional connection of it. Top of page 50. That the emotions affect the vision and the constriction and the revelations that come down, then drawn down from Chachma, till they can come down, drawn down in the letters of thought and the letters of speech, which is essentially completing this idea of, to explain the mashal about how we go from seichel to machshava dibur ma'aseh, that needs to be the intermediary of midas. In a similar vein, the Rebbe is now going to explain how this is in the spheres above. That to be able to arrive from Chachma Datzilus, which in that resides the Ein Sof, to Machshava Dibra Ma'aseh, which is the worlds of Bri Yitzir Asiyah, one needs to have the level of midas. Top of page, second paragraph on page 15. Alternatively, you will someone to be understood above. So that it should be able to be. I have created it, I formed it, I also made it. So that at least needs to be initially what it says, everything that I have called by my name and for my glory, which precedes the words in the pasuk Baras v'yitzarti v'apasis. This means not only is it necessary to be the Chachmei Law, which is Chachma, which is called the Reishis, the beginning of Seder Ishtalshlus, as we mentioned before. But following that, it also has to come down in the idea of midas. Though the father founded the daughter, like we said before, that the level of Chachma is the source of letters of Malchus. That how do letters come about? It's through Chachma. These letters are still concealed. Why is that so? Like we mentioned earlier, that the nature of Chachma is totally batul, and that's why, because of it's totally batul, the Ein Sof resides in. But because it's also totally batul, it's impossible that details to come into being from it. How much more so they can't come into being many details. Until details that can contradict each other. Chachma is true oneness and unity. So that should be able to be the revelation of letters. Many, many letters. Even letters that are opposing and contradicting each other. Meaning, ideas and thoughts and contrary concepts. For that, one needs to have the emotions. This is even the emotions within intellect. The midas shebeseichel are the source of the different views. When you see one view this way and one view that way, that comes from the midas shebeseichel. Inyanim nifradim, separate concepts. She'enim b'ofel actus, they're not in a way of unity. Behind the coming into being of the very existence of letters and language is in such a way that Chachma founded Malchus. The very fact that the letters are very, very much below, they're coming down from the essence of the nefesh, or from the beginning of the spheres, that spheres are Chachma. The Rebbe in other places elaborates upon this. Why letters need to have such a high source, higher than the seichel, higher than the emotions. And the reason for that is because letters reach all the way outside, very, very far away. They reach in the furthest levels. They communicate with someone outside of the person. So it needs to have a higher source. That is all in the power of it. Kadeshi is Gals, Isis, Hadibra, Philo, but that she actually come into revelation, the letters of speech, and the letters of thought. This has to be through passing through of the emotions. That only through them could be drawn down from the ultimate unity and oneness of the level, how they are in Chachma, to the multiple letters and thought, speech, until action down here below. That is what Midas contribute. Midas causes that division and that separation and coming down into many, many different parts. Any questions before we go on to Izvah? Okay, we're holding on the 8th page of your copies, page 15, Izvah, bottom paragraph. If you have the Dvar Malchus, page Yudzayin, top of the page. In a point, what was mentioned before, Shekol say that that everything that's called by my name and for my glory, I've created it, I formed it, I've also made it. Totally, dependent in the service of a person down here below, the study of Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs. But the word barasi is a numerical equivalent of Taryag, the 613 mitzvahs. Moving that's understood, and the service of a person down here below is without any type of blemish and without any type of lacking or defect. So then also above, there is, and the whole Seder Ishtalshus is complete and perfect. And this includes everything we just spoke about. It's from the level of everything that's called by my name for my glory, the way it comes down through the emotions of the heart until it's revealed in letters. Initially, the letters of thought, and afterwards, the letters of speech, and afterwards, the idea of action, the chlolas in general. When do we say that the avodas Adam down here below was unblemished, and therefore that focus above was as well reflected that? This was a state in the situation of the Eden in the time that the Beis Hamikdash was standing. Then all matters were in revealed state. And that's why it says in Mashiach, in the time that the Beis Hamikdash Eden davened, and their tefillos were answered. Whether they requested spiritual assistance in their spiritual service, or they asked for assistance on physical matters. They used to immediately see the response from above. But concerning the time of exile, it says that our signs we have not seen, meaning a revelation of godliness. We do not see the Eibishter in a revealed way. Because, as it says, because of our sins, we were exiled from our land. The chay to Malashon Chisar, as we know, many of our chassidus bring down that the word chay doesn't always mean a sin; it could also mean a lack and deficiency. What does that mean? The Hainu, this means shechaser, avodas adam lamata, top of page 16, that it's lacking in the service of a person down here below. The Inyan Zepal Gam Lamaila, and this lacking of a person down here below also affected in the hamshacha from the spheres above. Hainu, this means when the way how it was run from below, the way it would run below wasn't the way that they turned to me their neck and not their face. Nasa King Gamla Maila also occurred that way above. In the Stal Kashbon, that the flow left from the inner level of the emotion. In other words, that when a person served the Eibishter in a way of external, so what came down from above was also external. The Rebbe is going to elaborate upon this. Third line, Lacharai Eiref Lamatam, like to be understood from the difference between the inner part, which is also the face, to the back, the neck down below. In the face, there's all the revelations of the body of the person. Over there is the place of the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth. And them is revealed different senses of the person: sight, hearing, scent, smell, taste, and speech. As opposed to the neck, the level of the back. Though it's the very same head like before, it's the same head, but it's only the back. Still, and no, there are no revelations over there whatsoever. ועד שההפרש נקרא אפילו בחוש המשרש ובחוש הישר האחר. This distinction between the back of the head and the front of the head is recognizable even in the lowest one of the senses, which is the sense of touch. That what do we see about the sense of touch? How is it different? Upon him on the skin of the face, margish ha'adam shaloi be'erach yoser pratim u'bedakus yoser. A person feels and is sensitive so much more details and so much more subtle and so much more fine distinctions with the facial skin than they feels with the skin on his neck. What does that mean spiritually? The idea behind this in the service of a person, that the way the person is acting is in such a way that they turn to me their neck and not their face. What does that mean in the spiritual sense? There became a lack and a deficiency, heaven forbid, in the inner feeling in godly matters and holy matters. Until instead of that feeling, that sensitivity, his feeling, his passion becomes an external matter. In matters of this world. This means when it's speaking about a physical, material thing. So then the person is well aware of what he is lacking, what he is missing. I don't have the money I need. I don't have the food on the table. And this lack and this deficiency that he is deficient and lacking matters to him. And he is completely devoted to making sure that it's taken care of and so on. What do you mean the food is not there? I need to eat. As opposed to spiritual matter and a matter of holiness, is doing it is only by coercion. Like is doing it like a person does things in a way that out of habit. Since his father taught him and he got him accustomed to it, and he got him in the habit of doing it. He's saying him as even more so, also getting into the habit of it also did not help. Because when he was also lacking in this matter. On this type of way of acting, effect also above. Upon him, that will be the opposite of face to face. Instead of being face to face with the Eibishter, instead of seeing the Eibishter's inner involvement in the Eden, instead the face of the Eibishter, he says, I can see. Since the emotional intermediary was lacking, just like by the person, he wasn't invested emotionally. So then Kaviyachal, the Eibishter, is not invested emotionally for appearance sake. Like we said, emotions are the intermediary. So if it's not in the emotions, it doesn't come out revealed in the letters of thought. Especially in the letters of speech. Bottling on mice until the idea of action. Therefore, our signs we do not see that we daven in we do not see that our davening gets any response. Hein begashmis ve'hen beruchni is both physically and also spiritually. We'll stop over here. Any questions?